Do we need to pull up that clip with Mark Lamont Hill? Kind of wanted to talk about
Yeah, that might be
that
good.
with the black men's role in the household with the JVP.
I feel like I liked what Mark said, but I also think that the other gentlemen were expressing some grievances that could have been better, like acknowledged. Well, actually, not even. Actually, Mark did, I think, a great job of trying to yes and be like, okay, cool, I get where you're coming from. Let me add this context and try and paint a larger picture to kind of get towards his point of view. But I don't like some of the comments felt very like elitist, like we've already decided what the truth is, so y'all even asking these questions or having this pushback is completely just disallowed, and how dare you suggest that there's some specific black male
Agenda.
or experiences of oppression. And I feel like that happens often where it's like, and I get it because it's wrapped up in woman hating, queer phobia type shit,
Patriarchy.
but yes, and so I understand why there's that pushback, but sometimes it's like black men will express, here's the thing that we experience, and then it's immediately like, shut the fuck up. Like there's nothing that affects just black men. It's like, give me a second.
Yeah, like let's watch the clip, and I definitely want to hear Josh's thoughts on it because I'm still trying to formulate my shit.
TV shows. Do you believe that there was a plan in effect made by somebody to take the black man out of black household? Let's start with that debate. Do you believe that? Yes. I think there was a plan that resulted in that, and they knew that was okay. In other words, the plan was to lock niggas up.
There's a lot of bits there because I feel like they're all coming from kind of slightly different places. So I feel like one thing, and I've got like a million thoughts, but I'll just say one and then I'll shut up and see what y'all think. But one thing is the distinction between, was there a plot to destabilize black families specifically through the removal of black men versus was this kind of just a collateral damage of a decision to remove social democratic kind of safety net mechanisms and profit off black people through the prison industrial complex? The distinction between those two seems like so irrelevant to me that it doesn't make sense for Mark to bother disagreeing with that, because that seems like conspiratorial conjecture to me.
I think that your first point has merit, and I think that you could also look at it from the same lens of if it's such a point that those two are so intertwined and so linked that it doesn't make like that even bringing the distinction between them is splitting hairs, then their point is equally as irrelevant as Mark's.
I think given the fact that the other guy is dumber than Mark, like just let it rock is basically what I'm saying.
I think that when you just say he's dumber than me, I'm going to let it rock. I think that that's when like you enter a point of intellectual stagnation that even leads to this conversation.
I don't think so. I think here at least, or actually, yeah, talk it out. I'm not sure, but like, say again.
Sound like a little bit of an elitist there, my boy.
No, I think it's the opposite. I think there's this elitist thing where it's like, I need to badger you down because I've got these degrees, as opposed to understanding that like and maybe I should have said less educated rather than like dumber. I feel like it's like, yeah, you're a person, I'm a person. The things that we disagree about are largely irrelevant. I maybe have some more statistics and some more words to throw around this idea, but your kind of folk knowledge is largely getting the picture that we both agree on. I'm here to add context to it. I don't need to argue you down about a slightly conspiratorial element of what you said. But the other thing is, all of what Mark said to me, and I think this is maybe also key to my, it's like 2% pushback, but key to my little bit of pushback is I didn't see evidence in what Mark presented, which that doesn't mean that it's not there. It's a 9-minute clip, but I didn't see evidence to suggest that conspiracy isn't there. Just that he gave context for the mechanisms describing the end result that the other gentleman had identified. But is it this plan? Is it this conspiracy, or is it this conspiracy? I wasn't seeing in what he said a complete dismissal of the other guy's thing. It could be that. Cool, fine. Yeah. The solution is the same.
You look like you was about to say something.
I was, but I was leaving space for you.
Because at first I was seeing so first of all, like Flip and Ice, they were coming from like this old, like, there's this agenda, even like with black women, like online, like, constantly tearing down black men and like
That's
black masculinity.
Different thing.
Yes.
And like, but like that was how it started. And then like they kind of like went back. And then that's kind of because like their framework, their mindset behind that question was different from Mark's answer, or like Mark fundamentally didn't agree with where they were coming from.
Yes.
I think like on a deeper level, which led to why he answered the question the way he did versus what they were actually asking. Which
there's a lot of bits and pieces,
and that's why I really fucked with, like, because by the end, when Mark started saying, like, the language around masculinity, I don't like the language around masculinity. I 100% agree with that, because like masculinity means so many different things to so many different people. And I know I'm kind of like trailing off as far as like, the difference between like, prison versus getting the black man out of the household. But anytime like especially like a black man invokes masculinity, like to a lot of people it invokes a negative emotion. And like you can't say that, because even if you do mean that earnestly and you're trying to, and you're speaking in good faith, which is why a lot of people, I believe, got mad at what the hell is it, Anthony Mackie, for how he was talking about how he raises his son, because he was using that word masculinity a lot, black masculinity. When what I heard was like, it's not that bad. Like I don't, shit, sound like he raising protectors and providers. But that language, and because of patriarchy, because of all the shit that black men have put black women through, have led us here, fucking up the ecosystem. I say this shit time and time again. It's all led us here. But like, black men don't look at it that way. Like, hey, we are the architects of this fucking problem that we in right now. So,
I don't. Well, I think it really depends what you mean by the architects.
Well, okay, I don't mean structure. I don't
mean
structurally, like in terms of like the racism that we face, but the relationship, the relation that we have with our women and how they perceive us, masculinity and the patriarchy and all that together. Because black men have definitely played their hand well against our own.
Yeah,
women.
No, we've played,
that's
but I think that there are other. There's so many parts. Sorry, I'll let Alvin. Yeah. All right, folks. I want to tell you all about our brand new card game that we're putting in pre-sale orders for now. That it's shipping in April. It's called In All Seriousness. It's here, just like our podcast. It's got a range. It's got a spectrum. You know what I'm saying? It runs. It's got nuance. It's got polar ends. Every single card has two options: one thoughtful, intimate question to spark deep conversation with the folks that you are close to, and another that's just completely dumbass bullshit question to keep things completely unserious. You decide the vibe just like we do every single episode. And plus, it's double the cards of our last card game, so it's 100 prompts. That's 200 total prompts. Pre-orders are live now, so if you grab yours early, you get a discount. And if you're a member of the channel on Spotify, Patreon, YouTube, any of those, you get an additional 10% discount, which the code for that is in the Discord. So all the folks in the Discord have already been using that. Like I said, game ships in early April, so don't wait. Go to shop.wavingtheredflag.com to grab that, lock in your deck, and get ready for some of the deepest and dumbest conversations of your life. Now back to the show.
I love it. Deep and dumb. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Thank you for rocking with us. And I'm forgetting one more thing. Oh yeah, don't forget to sign up for, become a member. Definitely, you know what I'm saying? Become a member. It has perks and benefits. You get access to the full episodes now. So definitely that's a huge benefit. And then you get also access to like the full recordings, the lives that happened before, the access to the Discord. The community is growing day by day. Like every day I come in there, it's like somebody new in that motherfucker. Like say, hey,
our numbers grow daily, my brother.
Yes, indeed. Slowly and steadily, because it's still a very, very small business. Don't ever get it twisted. It's a very small one at that, baby. You know what I'm saying? So thank y'all for being here. And yeah.
So Josh hit the nail right on the head. I think the way he came at them is because their conspiratorial element had a basis of nothing. And I frequently say on this podcast, when we have conversations about things in this realm, I say I have a study and you have a feeling. You had a conversation in this clip where a lot of people were basing their stance on per them,
a feeling.
Oh, you see on these Twitter groups and on these Reddit posts, like that's what these women is all about and what these women is doing. And like what you have from that perspective was Mark taking a very kind approach to having.
He did a great job.
To having a conversation with them. And like, I don't think a lot of people fully understand who Mark Lamont Hill is because he does like BET shit or whatever. Like, This is a scholar. This is a scholar of American and Africana studies. This is a scholar of Black media, right? So he's fully versed in how media messages in terms of what they portray and all that kind of stuff in American history and all this kind of stuff. So, and that doesn't mean that he's infallible. That doesn't mean that he can't be wrong. Scholars are wrong all the time, but he's going to have some evidence to present to what he's doing. And he also is an expert that can cite his own work as a primary source. Like, he's not somebody that has to say like, oh, well, this person did this. No, he can say, in my book, based on my research, based on my,
I think all of that's fine. You still have to communicate that to the people you're in the room with.
And I think he did. I think he communicated it well. I think that they weren't in a place to receive what he was saying, because from them, what trumps all is the fact that they saw a Twitter conversation that does this or that or done this. And I
think that one of the unfair things, just real quick, is that I feel like they were saying there were multiple different things that were being said, and he was addressing kind of all of them, and they do stack up. But there's a difference between the kind of attacks on Black women that the flower pants guy was saying, and the criticism of power structures against Black men specifically that light skin with the black fitted was saying. And I feel like those are two different things.
And again, like if you really want to break that down, what I think Mark is trying to do in that segment, and I think what people should be trying to do, is not do whataboutism, right? I think that we can have conversations about how these things have attacked both Black men and Black women in a way that is productive to that conversation, that doesn't make Black men feel left out or Black women feel left out. So for me, as a person who is trying to, and let's be very clear about this, no man is above the patriarchy. There's not a single man in the history of men that is above the patriarchy. So I'm not holier than thou, but as a person who's trying to slowly divest himself and has been trying to slowly divest himself from certain aspects of the patriarchy, I don't view somebody saying that Black women have also been impacted by something as a slight against what I've been through as a Black man. So I think that what Mark is trying to do is trying to say that we're in this together from point A to point B, from the 60s to now, from the Good Times episode to the BET Awards last year. And we don't have to have this whole thing where we have to say like Black men were especially targeted, to say that Black men have been targeted in addition to Black women, in order to have a conversation about how we move forward. And again, I get it. I get the whole argument of like men's spaces and all this kind of stuff. Cool, whatever. But my whole thing is like, if you're a secure man trying to divest himself from patriarchy, it doesn't hurt you to say that, like, yes, I have things that like impact me. That Black woman was right there with me next time, because every single stat that you look at from every single situation, which is what Mark was trying to call out, every single piece of that puzzle had a Black woman that was also hurt from that same situation, right? Pulling Black men out of the household, quote unquote, was not a specific thing. It also hit Black women.
Because I don't want this to devolve into a bickery thing, because I think that there's as much as I love, our fucking matches or whatever, but I'm going to try and raise this so that it doesn't become that, because I don't think it'll be productive here. I think that you're kind of begging the question, because you've kind of said like, okay, I kind of get the concept of men's spaces and talking about a particular issue specifically in a moment and focusing on it. And then kind of very quickly we're like, but if you're secure, then you shouldn't need that. Seemed like what you were kind of putting forward.
No, but I'll explain your point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, if that's a kind of not quite a correct characterization, fine. Clarify that once I'm done. My thing is, in a given moment, focus matters. And if someone says, hey, the prison industrial complex affects Black men disproportionately, I don't think that that's inherently an attack on any other gender besides Black men. And it's okay to focus on that in a particular moment when we're talking about a particular thing. Now, I understand that shit is so wrapped up that oftentimes Black men struggle to articulate that without trying to blame gay people and women. So I do understand there's that real big difficulty, because you could see Flower Pants was like struggling to form a sentence about Black men's specific oppression that didn't blame Black women. So I understand the trepidation around focusing there specifically, but I don't understand this idea, and it's come up before. I don't understand this idea of that there's something inherently unattractive or bad about going, hey, here's a thing that affects Black men specifically. It's not to the disadvantage of anybody else. in that moment, we don't need to say yes, but also that is whataboutism, because sometimes there's shit that affects just Black women or just Black queer people. And for this particular conversation, we focus on that specifically in that moment. And we don't have to say, what about Black men? The same applies here. So I feel like we only play this game with Black men.
No. So here's the situation, right? Here's the situation. If I'm in a situation where like a bomb goes off, right? If I'm in a situation where a bomb goes off, lots of people get hurt. Yep. Yes, I'm going to be concerned about treating my wound, right? And that's normal. That's natural. What I'm not going to say is like, man, I'm wounded. They only wanted to get me. A lot of people got hit in that bomb, right? A lot of people got hit with shrapnel. A lot of people got done with that. So what they were doing in that particular clip was they were trying to say that like there was a bomb that hit a mass of people, but somehow saying that like only Black men got hit. So when you're having your men only spaces, yes, you can treat the wound of the man. Like, I'm not saying that that's wrong. Like, men have wounds, like treat them. Yes. But having a conversation where you're saying like this bomb didn't hit a lot of people is completely off base, and it doesn't have to be that way. Like, and again, a secure man can say like, yes, I need to treat my wound, and like we're going to have a space to treat our wound. But I'm not going to say that you weren't wounded in this same bomb. And that's what they were trying to say.
Yeah, I think I don't love that analogy because it's good for illustration, but I don't think it kind of has the striation of what this situation actually is. So yeah, I could try and like edit the fucking analogy, but I'm going to not do that just because it makes stuff more messy. And I'll just go back to the specifics of what we're talking about. If somebody's coming forward and saying Black men are the only ones by this, and we shouldn't be talking about Black women, cool. And maybe that was happening in that clip. I didn't watch the whole episode, fair enough. But if someone says, hey, the prison industrial complex affects us in this way, people's view of Black masculinity affects us in this way, and we're just having a conversation in this room about that thing, it is not constructive in that moment to say, yes, what about? In the same way it wouldn't be constructive when we're talking about Black women's maternal fatality concern. That doesn't need to become a what about racism for Black men. We can talk about a particular thing in that moment, and that's normal for any kind of triage. Now, yeah, that's me trying to divorce what I'm saying versus what some other people might be saying, which is yes us only versus yes us right now. And I think those are two very big distinctions.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that the way I interpret it, their conversation is they were having a conversation about men being impacted by this, and Mark was saying, well, like everybody was impacted by this. Like they were trying to make it like women's and their roles and how they were impacting this based on a social media trend and all this kind of stuff. Okay. How they were doing. And like I get where you're coming from because you always try to bring that approach, but again, like you having a man's only conversation doesn't mean that you have to say like, well, women are out to get me. And they were literally framing this as Josh hit it. Like Josh hit it from my perspective, as I understand it, Josh. And like, if I'm mischaracterizing your thoughts, Josh, please let me know. But like, that's how I interpreted that.
Yeah, I think parts of it were that. I think parts of it were not. And I'm not faulting Mark for not being able to like expertly surgically dissect what each of these men who's have overlap. Because Budden was coming in and being like, wait, y'all are talking about TV shows. Let's talk about this. So I'm not saying Mark did it. I think Mark did it as expertly as any person who's an expert trying to explain something in layman's terms could have possibly done, just to clarify. But I think that there was both the like only Black men as well as we're just currently talking about Black men, both happening in that conversation.
I'll say this: if me personally, if I'm believing them to trying to have a conversation in good faith, I don't think they were trying to say like Black women weren't impacted or going through these things. It was just trying, like Eddie what I believe Eddie to be trying to do right now, just to give them space, just to say, hey, this happened to Black men. And just give Black men the space to say, hey, this happened to us without being immediately attacked, or to say, well, the women were also attacked. Well, we know that.
Like, but, you know, and
we can also have this conversation too. And we're not trying to like dissuade women, although what I was saying and what Alvin was saying too, because he was like, fucking Flip was like, well, shoot, there's this rhetoric in this online discourse that's discrediting Black men. But
he was on some different shit.
For sure. So, I mean, those two things are very much so true at the same time right now. I'm honestly, like when I was first hearing it, and I was hearing like what Mark was saying, I was like, well, I mean, like he's not wrong. Like Flip isn't necessarily wrong because I mean, like you do see that stuff, like that rhetoric online. But again, shit, I understand where it's coming from, like why we're in this situation now. So that be like my main thing, and so it's like, what shit, hey, what can you do? But as far as I do believe that black men were definitely targeted to be taken out of the household because they wanted to destabilize the black family, like at all levels. I mean, shit, redlining. I mean, hell, abominable Black Wall Street, like shit that we was talking about earlier. Like all these black initiatives that we started were systematically and very much targetedly so and intentionally destroyed or like interrupted. Like anytime we try to like move up, like it's always been fucked with. Like our community has always been fucked with. What's one way to fuck up the or to destabilize a black family is to take one of the parents out of the household.
Yeah, fewer parents.
The patriarchy, like, oh, let's take the man out of the household. So, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I definitely do believe that's part of it. But Mark was more so like along the lines, and he brother know a lot more than I do. So I could be wrong on this, but his main thing was like, no, it's about money. If they could just get all the money and the power, they would just leave us alone, which I don't necessarily agree with. And if that's what he meant.
Yeah, I would say if I were to edit Mark's approach, because I think that my view is that being an expert or having lots of education does make your arguments much, much stronger, but it doesn't make you the only person capable of critical thought in a conversation. We know there are plenty of educated people. Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson's. It's okay for us to agree with them, even if we don't have a PhD in fucking psychology. We're still thinking people, and so I'm a little bit more hesitant to completely dismiss like feelings versus studies. And I'll elaborate on that in another conversation. But here, if I were to change anything about Mark's approach, and again, I'm saying I think he did it. I can't think of anybody who could have done a better job than him in that moment. I wouldn't have done, if I was in his position, I would have done a worse job. But if I were changing anything, I would have said yes to what the guy with the black fitted was saying. Of like, yeah, they mostly did it for money. That was the impact. Damn near it doesn't really make a difference. And that could have been part of it. Both of these things could maybe be true. And then use that as a springboard to say, but I think that we're miscontextualizing this gender wars. Black women are to blame for where we're at, as opposed to being kind of in the same ship, the same sinking ship as us. And then go from there would have been the change that I would have made.
I also want to say, and I know it's missed its like high point in the zeitgeist, but I have so many thoughts on the Anthony Mackie shit, just because it's like I have so many thoughts on that. I wish we could have caught that at the height of its
right at the peak
relevance for very similar reasons.
Yeah. There was. I might have to take back a little bit what I said, but there was some red flaggy things with it, but there's definitely some red flag things with it. Don't make that, man.
I need to see the full context of it. And that is such a good point about the masculinity thing of what Mark was saying, is that it means so many specific things that like masculinity and so-called toxic masculinity for a lot of people are damn near just the same
thing.
Fucking thing. And I feel like that makes it really difficult to have a conversation and be like, look, regardless of any of what you think, mask people exist. We're just going to continue. I'm saying we, because I'm, a traditional masculine man, but like we exist. So it's like, what is to be done with that? It's not like masculinity is something that can be dissipated or erased. It's a conversation around how do we reform that into the future, in the same way that femininity as a social aesthetic is not fucking going anywhere. So when people go like, yeah, we want a space for masculinity, what does that look like? Is a conversation that is going to happen. It's actually not a negotiable. It's going to have to happen. It's going to go one way or the fucking other. We're having to choose whether or not we want to engage with it, but the conversation is going to happen regardless.
And I think the conversation needs to be centered around, and I mention this quite frequently, but I think the conversation needs to be centered around the fact that a lot of people tend to associate favorable traits and strength with masculinity, and unfavorable traits and weakness with femininity.
Yeah.
So like, I do think that there needs to be, because like that in and of itself is why like a lot of people associate like those things as like the most negative aspects of the patriarchy. Because when you hear people talk about femininity, they're talking about things that are innately like viewed as bad by society, which in and of itself is also
Not
a result
always.
of patriarchy. I think about like what people talk about, like they're like, man, I'm in my masculine energy, like I'm providing and I'm a leader and I'm strong and I'm powerful, and like I'm in my feminine energy and I'm just gonna let somebody take care of me. Like that's not like I think that those are I think that the dichotomy in which we draw that fine line and don't look at those things as a continuum contribute to why these conversations become so difficult, and why you see things like toxic masculinity being synonymous with masculinity, and why you see a lot of men rallying against femininity, like as an innate like attack on their personage as a mass presenting like individual. So I think that if you get rid of those kind of connotations with the way we dichotomize the traits on those lines and look at it more of a continuum, I think that those conversations get easier.
Yeah, I think that doesn't that's like when we kind of have a macro like, oh, it's really simple, just destroy capitalism and that'll solve the problem. It's like, cool, none of that's happening, and most of this stuff happens from like here up. So like what you're describing, the way that actually happens is a series of conversations like the ones that are happening on the Joe Budden podcast, where we go like, cool, what do we mean by masculinity? What do we want to add? What do we want to change? Like when we're talking about our grandfathers and how their masculinity was great, we go, well, they were beating our grandmothers. You know what I'm saying? There was some elements of that masculinity that weren't great. That's where it happens. It's not some lofty, like it'll happen top down.
Agree. And I agree. And I never said that. So agreed. Like we're on the same
fair
page.
Enough. Yeah.
Like we're on the same page. Good job.
So I think that maybe the circle that and maybe you were already like not disagreeing with my point is that when I say we have to have a conversation around what masculine presenting people will look like, and having conversations like that is the thing that you're describing. Like that thing that I presented.
I just want to say I was never disagreeing with you. It was an opinion.
Cool.
Like I was never disagreeing with you. We're on the same page.
My fault. I can't read your eyebrows. You know what I'm saying? That Botox is fucking me up. The eyebrows aren't going up enough for me to read.
100%.
Or maybe it's autism. I don't know.
Both.
Yes.
Well, if you've got Botox and a little bit of autism, you might be seeing a red flag. I'm just joking.
I don't know, man. Yeah, do that one again.
Hey, come on, we can have a little joke.
Do that one again, man. Do that one.
This next section, people sensitive. It's fine.
Man.
Botox is fine. Autism is fine. They're both on the spectrum. It's fine.
Yeah,
everybody's okay.
What I'm saying? Yeah, it's all right. We're just jokes.
We said might.
Might. And hey, some people who are bad just so happen to have Botox and autism. We're not,
it's not really. It's not correlated. It's not. Just a coincidence.
I mean, touche. Touche. Can't argue with that one.
Hey,